So I'm going to focus on my first goal, which was to be an active participant in AT legislation. I think that this goal wasn't accomplished, unfortunately, due to the fact that it was so large. If you look down at my T of SMART, I had wanted to make my first correspondence within the first couple weeks, and I wanted at least 5 in the semester, which for someone that has never written to even their mayor, let alone a congressman or a senator, it's a lot to ask of them. And I think I just bit off way more than I could chew with this goal. Looking back, I probably should have said I wanted to do 1 correspondence, which would have been much more manageable, so that I could go through all of the phases of writing, so that if I were to submit something, it would be polished, professional, and come off in a positive light for athletic training as a profession. So, on a more positive note, my second goal was obtained, which was to learn 10 new ways to practice athletic training in a clinical setting. In order to make sure that I did it, I would bring my planner around with me, and anytime that I learned a new technique, I would jot it down in the notes section in the back of my planner, and I would date it so that I could remember when I learned it. So, as you can see, it's all right here. So just to give you some examples, I had learned on February 18th, I learned the process of cupping for paraspinal tightness, which Joe taught me while I was in my wrestling rotation. Then going farther down, April 22nd, I learned how yoga poses can be used for warm-ups for athletes with chronic back issues, which I learned at St. Francis with baseball. One of our pitchers had to do certain yoga poses in order for him to get warmed up to pitch in the bullpen. Um, March 30th, I learned a new subscapularis stretch that I could do passively for some of my pitchers, which was also learned with baseball at St. Francis. And there are a total of 10 throughout the 2 rotations that I had during this semester, which I thought it was very beneficial. It kept me on my toes. It kept me wanting to ask questions and learning. I'll definitely continue this into my next rotations because not only does it keep me accountable and being responsible for my own learning, it also, I can jot it down so that I can remember it later and apply it to different clinical settings and look back and say, oh, I learned this MOB or this tape job, and now I can apply it in my next site. So I think it definitely helped me overcome the fact that I don't like to look incompetent to people around me. It made me focus on how can I make this a positive learning experience so that I'm still able to get something out of each clinical rotation, even though I've had thousands and thousands of hours of clinical work before coming to Manchester. So, like I said, I'm definitely going to keep doing this. I'll probably increase it, especially going into St. Francis with football. I know I have a lot to learn with Julie, and I'm really looking forward to it. So, yeah, this is definitely a positive goal to have. My third goal, which was to focus on getting 4 hours a day outside of the classroom and clinicals working on coursework, I worked at diligently throughout the semester, but it wasn't always accomplished. I think it would have been better now looking back on it, instead of doing a daily hour or the daily hours that I want to work on coursework. I think it would have been better to work more on a weekly basis, because when you have games on top of games on top of games, sometimes it's hard to be able to get those hours in daily. But a lot of times I did make up for them on a weekly basis. So what I did for this in my planner again on this large page, or the month page that I don't normally use. I put numbers in the corner of how many hours that I was able to work. Normally it was in the library on coursework. So you could have seen that occasionally I would get 2 one day, but then I'd get 6 the next day, or I would get 8 one day and 0 one day. So now looking back, I would definitely change this to uh, a weekly amount of hours that I would work on coursework. It did keep me accountable and making sure that I got the coursework done, and I was able to keep up and a little bit ahead, especially with my studying. So I will continue this goal, but I will definitely change it so that I'm getting 20 hours a week instead of 4 hours a day. So my fourth goal was to attend church twice a month, and I definitely didn't reach this goal. Again, it had to do a lot with the amount of hours I was getting clinically, and the fact that Sunday was one of the only days that I could either relax or double up on my study time. I did end up going about once a month, sometimes twice a month. But like I said, this is one that was just not attained due to my schedule. A lot of the times, I either had other things that I had committed to, and I ran out of month before I could get my 2 times in. But looking back, I definitely need to work on this, being more active in church body, finding one that fits my values and makes me want to go is the biggest thing. So I'm going to keep looking for a church. Lastly, my goal was to achieve the minimum ACSM requirement for the weekly physical activity. This goal was not met. When I first created it, I was much more active. I wasn't traveling to St. Francis every day. I was always at Manchester, so it was a lot easier to keep up with. And then as I changed rotations to St. Francis, those 2 hours of drive time on top of the fact that I was at clinicals, I just ran out of time with the amount of schoolwork that I had. I definitely underestimated the schoolwork that I would have this semester. And I think my biggest thing was I didn't make a plan. I had this big overarching goal of getting these ACSM requirements, so 150 minutes of activity every other day, cardio every other day, resistance, focusing on every muscle group twice a week. I know all of these general requirements for physical activity, but to me, I think what I fell short of was actually making out and writing out a goal schedule each week so that I had something to like check off. So again, I'm going to keep this goal, but I will definitely be making a plan, making a schedule, making a calendar so that I can keep myself accountable with that. So throughout my reflection, I kind of talked about what I'm going to change and do differently. So just to recap, um, I'm going to continue to try to be an active participant in legislature, but I'm definitely going to scale back. I'm going to do one contact and make sure to take that letter or email through all of the stages of writing to make sure it's a polished product. My second goal, I'm going to keep up. I actually think I'm going to go ahead and increase that into 20 new ways to practice athletic training in a clinical setting throughout my time at football, because I think there's just so much that I can learn from Julie, and I can't wait to start. My third goal, I'm going to change that one to a weekly hours for studying. So I'm going to change it to 20 hours a week instead of 4 hours a day, just so that If I have one day that's free and I can get a lot of studying done, it can kind of make up for the days that I'm just swamped with clinical work and I'm not able to spend as much time in the library. So then my fourth goal, um, I think I'm going to actually take that one out. I'm going to keep trying to look for a church body to be an active participant in, but at this time, I feel like it's more beneficial for me to focus on other things goal wise. Um, so then my fifth goal, um, my achieving the ACSM requirements for physical activity. I'm going to still try to accomplish those, but instead of just giving this overarching umbrella of things that I need to accomplish, I'm going to try to specify it into a workout plan for each day throughout the week so that I can achieve those goals but have smaller daily goals as well to make it a little bit more attainable. Also, thinking about next year, I'm going to also add a BOC study schedule, kind of like what I'm doing with the goals for my activity requirements. I'm going to try to make a schedule of what I'm studying, how I'm going to study, and the amount of time I'm going to study each day for the subjects on the BOC, so that by the time I get to April, I'm going to be prepared. And that will start this summer and hopefully continue throughout the entire my entire time next year until I get up to the BOC. And then lastly, I'm gonna focus on trying to find a job, which has been kind of a struggle not having that supplemental income that I've been so used to since I was 15. It's going to be very, very part time, maybe on campus, maybe not. But that's going to be a summer goal, is to try to line up at least one part time job, hopefully for the entirety of the semester, just to have, or the entirety of the year, just to have that supplemental income.